Well, welcome back to Modeling Time with me, Brian Banna. Now, in the last episode, I talked about how I needed to clean all of the grease out of the gear towers, off the axle gears, and off the gears. Well, that's all done. So, here's all the gear towers. Here's all the gears. And here are all the wheel sets. So, the next thing I need to do is grit blast the gear towers and put a coat of gloss black paint on them. Now, before I can do that, I need to put a little bit of tape on where the axle bushings contact this pickup strip, and so they don't get blasted and they don't get painted. So let me get the camera set up and I'll show exactly what I'm talking about here. All right, there's nothing special here. All I need to do is this pickup strip here, here, and here I need to protect from being grit blasted and painted. So I'll just pop it off and cut a piece of tape that's about as wide as that strip and just put it on there and put the bottom clip back on and go to the grit blasting booth and paint it. Now I have these wires taped together like this. The only reason I'm doing that is when it's in the grit blasting booth, I don't want the wires flopping around, so I can just, tape them together. They'll stay together, and I can hold this and just blast it all the way around. So once I get that done, I can clean them up, put some gloss black paint on them, and put them aside. After they're painted, after those are painted, then I need to take all these wheels and paint the wheel faces and get all of these wheels weathered on the wheel faces. And I'll show you how I weather them. Actually, they'll go pretty fast. It's not like freight car wheels where I got to paint the insides and the backs and the faces. On these, I just need to paint the faces. So that'll go pretty easy. I'll show you how what I do, what kind of paint I put on them and how I weather them. All right, now I've got the tape on the parts that contact the axle bushings, so when I grit blast this, I will not mar that surface or paint that surface. So I'm going to get all these all these gear towers grit blasted and a coat of gloss black surface primer from Stynylrez. Here's what a truck looks like, or a gear tower looks like after being grit blasted. You can see the dull Delrin or Silicon, whatever material they're using, and then this is the shiny part didn't get grit blasted. I don't need to paint this part up here. It's just basically this portion's down here. So now this gives it a nice tooth so that paint will stick to it and not flake off. So I'm going to go get these painted in a gloss black, and that'll take care of the gear towers. So there I have it. I've got 4 sets of gear towers. I'm going to let these dry for a few days. Now the reason I've painted them black first is because watching some of the YouTube modelers doing automotive modeling or other type of modeling than trains, I've found, or they have said that putting a black base down before you put silvers or golds or bronzes or anything like that, it'll give a much better color. And I've tried it and they're right, it really does. So I've got these all painted black. I'll let those dry for a few days, or actually until I get the wheels done. So I'm going to grit blast the wheels, I'm going to paint them, and then I'll show you how I do my weathering. The weathering goes really fast. Now normally if the axle tips was where the pickup was, I'd have to mask them off, but since they're not, I don't have to. So I can just grit blast this whole thing. I'll shoot a coat of light brown on them, and then we'll do some weathering. Well, there we have all the wheels ready for paint. So this is what a grit blasted wheel face looks like. You can see the tread is still shiny, untouched, and then the face has a nice tooth to it, so the paint will stick to it really well, and the weathering over it will do really nice. So I'll get all these painted. I'll use Stynylrez Primer Brown, and I'll let it dry for like maybe a day, maybe two. I like to let the paint really get good and dry and shrink down over the surface real nicely before I start adding weathering effects. So I'll go ahead and go get these painted. I'll put them in the wheel mask, the Modeler's Choice wheel mask, and just shoot a coat of paint over them. Real quick, prior to painting these, I did wash them really good, and then I had to make sure that there was no fine grains of grit down between the axle and these bushings. So I just took a pair of flat nose pliers, grabbed the bushing, and just rotated it. And as long as I don't feel any grit, you know, grinding on the axle and stuff, and it rolls freely, everything's clean. So there's no grit left in these. I washed them really good, and as I said, they're ready for paint. Alright, don't pay attention to that right now. Just real quick, all the wheels are painted, and they're sitting on my paint bench drying. So I'm going to let these dry for a couple days, and I'll get back to doing the weathering, and we'll do a video on the weathering. It's really fast, really easy, and the results are really cool. So that's what those look like. Now we'll look at these. I was about to have a conniption because, as you can see, the brake cylinders are glued on. And I was looking at them, I was just about ready to go, why do they have them glued on? And I was looking closer and closer and closer, and I realized, yeah, they're glued in, but they're only tack glued in with like a rubber glue or something like that. Now, I think I know why they did that, is because these brake shoes, or these brakes, aren't the same. One has one shoe on it, and one has two shoes on it. So you need to put them in the right orientation depending on where they are on your truck. So before you take these off, remember where they're at, or mark them, or do something so that you get them back in the right place. Now, as you can see, I've got these ones all off. The caps come as separate pieces, and I want to say kudos to Scale Trains on the way they did their Hyatt roller bearing caps. They're clocked, so you can't get them wrong when you put them in. There's a flat side, and they look really nice when they're in there. I mean, I have to clean up the sprue booger, but they're really nice. Now, these side frames are made out of what feels like very slippery plastic, and same for the brakes. So they're not brittle, they're not going to break and stuff unless you really gorilla around with them. Same for the sanding hoses. These are made out of, I think, Selcon or Delrin or something, because they're very flexible too. So real quick, how to get the brakes out. Hopefully I can show this on camera. I use these curved tweezers. Let me get my visors down. Okay, this is going to take a little bit because I got to keep looking at the camera to make sure I'm on camera. So I stick the curved tweezers underneath, around the pin, put my thumb over it so it doesn't flex too much, and just wiggle it. Of course, this one's being a pain. Let's try this one. There we go. You'll hear a little snap, and the pin came out. So let's go back to this one. Wiggle it a little. This one is really being a booger. We'll come back to that one. Let's try these two. See if these ones will come out. The other ones all came out really easy. But these ones, looks like they put some extra glue in there. There we go, there's that one. Now let's see if we can get this one. There we go. So there's that one. So it's just gotta clean up a little bit of the glue. There's not much in there, but I'll clean it up for when I put the new ones in. So this one's out. Let's see if we can get this one out. Looks like it came out good. There we go. So there we have. So everything's apart. Now, building these trucks, what I need to do is I need to put the brake plumbing from this brake to this brake, and then a piece comes up over the top. I'll go over all that when it's time to build these. I need to put the Hyatt roller bearing caps in. Let me take a step back. The first thing I need to do is clean up any mold parting lines. On the trucks, there's not really any to clean up. I just have to clean up some of the sprue boogers that are on the top of the frame and a few on the bottom. No big deal. There's no flash that I can find at all on them. Really nice. On the bearing caps, I just have to clean up the sprue boogers. And on the brake cylinders and brake the brake shoes, I just have to clean up a little bit of a mold parting line. Not very much, very easy. Very happy I was able to get those off. Once those are all cleaned up, so I got to put the brakes back in, but before I do that, I'll drill them and for the brake plumbing and all that, and like I said, we'll go over all that. I'll put the journal caps on, Hyatt roller bearing caps on, so we'll have the caps on, we'll have the brakes in, we'll have the plumbing in, and the last thing to do is the sanding hoses. Now I'm not going to use these sanding hoses. I will use this end piece, and again we'll go over in detail what I'm going to do with that. There is on the back of these side frames, there is a notch or a little channel in the back of each of these brackets that supposedly this is supposed to go into, but these aren't opened enough for this to fit into. It just fits over the surface. So I'll open it up a little bit to fit that in. What I'm going to do is I am going to cut this off, leave a little bit out, maybe about that much, that fits in that bracket. Let me put this back here. That fits in this bracket. And then I'm going to drill it for a 12 thousandths brass pin, and I'll make my own sanding hose. Because on the prototype, let's say this is this way here. Let's say this is where the fuel tank is and this is where the step well is. Well, this is correct coming down like that, but this is not correct coming down this way in the step well. In the step well, they'll be coming from out here and then in. So I will simulate that on my model, and I'll use Miniatronics ultra flexible wire that measures 22 thousandths, which is the diameter of the prototype. If you scale it up, it's the diameter of the prototype hose, so it works out really well. So I'll do that, and again I'll go over all that in detail. So like I said, first thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to clean up all the parts. Once all that's done, then we'll go over getting the brake plumbing in, and I'll show that in detail. Then I'll glue the bearing caps in, and then we'll make the brake, we'll put the nozzle into the bracket and get the pin in, and then these are ready for painting. Alright, so we're making a little bit more headway with the SD45 build. You saw that I got the gears, the gear towers, and everything all cleaned up. I got the gear towers painted, I got the wheels painted, and we're starting to work on the truck side frames. So that takes care for this video. In the next video, we'll go over building the side frames, getting those all done. And if that doesn't take too long, we'll get the wheels weathered and we'll get the gear towers painted and or painted silver, and we just have to grit blast the side frames, and when they're all done, and paint those. So I thank you for watching. I hope you're enjoying this, and I'll catch you in the next video. Here we have a screenshot of the artwork. Now I'm going to get these decals done at microscale. So the outer rectangle you see on the left-hand side here represents the standard sheet size for microscale. I could make them smaller if I wanted to, but for how much you have to pay for these things, I want to get the most for my money, so I want to fill the sheet up with other things that I might want for other projects. Now you can see at the top that the demonstrator decals are done. Now if you're wondering what the pink layer is, that's the clear carrier that they put the color over. That's considered a color at microscale, so you're paying for each color, so that's considered a color. Please disregard all the other stuff. It's just projects that I'm working on. The KONG decals will actually go to Highball Graphics. I don't need 250 sheets of KONG, so I'll put enough on for 5 cars. So in the next shot, you'll see the demonstrator decals up close. So here we have a close-up screenshot of the demonstrator decals. Disregard the red placards, that's for another project, but I had the room there to put them in, so you stuff everything in where you can. But like I say, here you get a better look. I did test these out. They fit properly, proportionally they look right, scale they look right, and I'm very confident that when I get them in, they will do what they need to do. Now I have all these GMs on there because I need a little bit of compromise possibly. The one on the left is the one I scaled off the prototype drawing. The one next to it is the same as the one on the left, but with just individual letters, so if I have to move them around a little bit, I can do that. The other two are just slightly larger than each other, so it gives me some wiggle room if I need something else. Now you'll notice that I only have one of each decal on the sheet. That is because I use 2 sheets to finish the model. When your minimum order at microscale is 250 sheets. So I can maximize the pages or the sheets by only putting one side of a model on a sheet. And then like I said, you just use 2 sheets and you get it done. So that's why you only see one side here. The logo, that was a chore. I had to use I bought the one from Rail Fonts. It just wasn't quite right, and I was not happy with it at all. So I used it as a guide, but I built my own using the Rail Font as a guide and the prototype photos as a reference, and it turned out, I think, to be really, really nice. I'm really happy with the design of the logo. So there you have it. That's what the decals look like.